Assalamu alaikum. Sudais and Mufti Menk announced recently that they are going on a hunger strike until the genocidal siege ends, stating, and I quote, "We will no longer banquet in royal palaces and feast while Gaza's children starve." End of quote. Well, at least we can imagine they did. Imagine if Al-Sudais, the Imam of the Kaaba, had taken a stand worthy of his post for the starving children of Gaza, for Palestine, if instead of praying for security and stability for corrupt tyrants and despots, they used their pulpits to declare no more bombs over Gaza, no more desecration of Al-Aqsa, no more starvation of Gaza's children. Muslim countries and armies must move to liberate Palestine. Just imagine if, like the Prophet ﷺ under the siege of Mecca, Sudais Mufti Menk, Hamza Yusuf bin Bayyah, etc., had shown a shred of backbone, uncompromisingly standing shoulder to shoulder with Palestine and Gaza. Millions would have risen, the Ummah would have felt hope, and maybe, just maybe, the Ummah would have awakened. What would the world look like if our scholars had courage? But of course, that didn't happen. Instead of condemning Zionist brutality and instead of confronting the Arab tyrants who finance this genocide, instead of standing unshakably with the oppressed people of Palestine, they chose banquet halls, they chose silence, they chose betrayal. Al-Sudais Mufti Menk, Hamza Yusuf bin Bayyah, and etc., names once respected, today stand complicit. Whilst Gaza's children die of dehydration, these men feast in palaces that fund the very siege. They shake hands with the tyrants who arm the killers. They pose for photos in silk robes and gold-trimmed rooms. Whilst children in Gaza are buried beneath cement and ash, they issue vague du'as, empty sermons, generic prayers for peace and stability, for regimes committing mass murder. Peace for who? Stability for what? For the tyrants or the oppressed? The people of Gaza and Palestine bleed, and these men help whitewash this crime. This isn't silence. This is betrayal wrapped in a rise, in a turban, in a thobe, breach from a mimbar justified in the name of Islam. Has Sudais, Mufti Menk, Hamza Yusuf, and the likes, these so-called mountains of traditional learning, forgotten even the elementary ayats of the Quran commanding the believers to stand and come to the help of those who are oppressed? Then why do they never reference these ayats? Why are their sermons, seminars, lectures deafeningly silent on Gaza? Do they ignore the seerah they claim to love and follow? When the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were besieged by Quraysh in the valley of Abu Talib, they endured 3 years of hunger. Children cried out in starvation. Leaves were eaten. The sound of empty stomachs filled the valley. But even in that suffering, the Messenger ﷺ never dined with the Quraysh. He never softened his stance for comfort. He never legitimized oppression. He never legitimized silence, not for food, not for power, not for kings. It was Mut'im ibn Adi, a non-Muslim, who tore down the boycott scroll from inside the Kaaba because he could not stand injustice. A man of conscience. Whilst today Al-Sudais stands in the very same spot and does nothing. Where is that conscience today in these ulama? Where is that prophetic courage, that Quranic clarity, that human decency? Gaza lives that same siege, that same hunger, that same boycott. And yet these so-called scholars look away. And they serve the kings and not the oppressed. Forget hunger strike. They won't even whisper the truth, let alone go hungry for it. So the burden now falls on us, the Muslim Ummah, you and me. Those who still feel, those who still care. To account these so-called scholars and make them feel the pressure, make them uncomfortable in their compromised positions. Let us put pressure on these so-called ulama scholars and demand, firstly, Sudais, Mufti Menk, Hamza Yusuf and their like, use their platforms to unequivocally condemn genocide, name the perpetrators, the Zionists and the Arab puppet regimes, the normalizers who aid and abet their genocide. Demand Sudais Mufti Menk call for Muslim countries and their armies to intervene to stop the slaughter of our people in Gaza. Demand Sudais Mufti Menk start a real hunger strike themselves in real solidarity until this barbaric siege ends. Start a petition demanding action. Start online campaigns, name, shame, pressurize them. We got to do something. Account these scholars for their cowardice, their complicity, their silence in palaces whilst Gaza burns. And lastly, brothers and sisters, let us not be the dopamine Muslims who are fascinated, impressed by garbs and beards and voices and just feel good, hypnotized by appearances. Islam isn't a celebrity culture. Follow the Islam of Musa alayhi salam, the Islam of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Islam of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi salam, not the Islam of Sudais and Mufti Menk. An Islam which inspires courage, sacrifice and truth. Muslims must break free from fear, comfort, and false religiosity and embrace the prophetic role of speaking truth to power and stand as we are meant to with the oppressed, with Gaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.